At first, the house does not try to impress. We see a low horizontal form resting close to the ground, patterned brickwork, warm wood, and a silence asking to be discovered slowly. As we descend into Canton, Ohio, the context begins to explain the architecture. This is an American suburb in the 1950s, a world of post-war expansion, new lots, new roads, and the need to make housing faster and cheaper. From above, the Ellis A. Feiman House appear modest, but closer, I see something more complex, a house shaped by rhythm, privacy, light, and Frank Lloyd Wright's belief that even an ordinary home could become an architectural experience. This is the Ellis A. Feiman House, also known as the Alice and Ellis Feiman Residence, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1954 in Canton, Ohio. And here, in one of Wright's late domestic experiments, the house becomes more than a residence. It becomes a question: can a system still produce something deeply human? The Feiman House is not one of Wright's most famous works. It does not carry the immediate drama of Falling Water, the public spectacle of the Guggenheim, or the mythic aura of Taliesin. But that is precisely why it matters. It belongs to the quieter side of Wright's late career, where the most important ideas are not always loud. They are embedded in proportion, construction, movement, and the subtle choreography of daily life. To understand the importance of this house, we need to begin with the post-war American home. By the early 1950s, the United States was expanding rapidly. Suburbs were growing, families were moving outward. Housing was becoming a product shaped by efficiency, repetition, and affordability. The dream of the American house was everywhere, but the architectural quality of that dream was often shrinking. The home was becoming standardized, predictable, and increasingly detached from deeper spatial imagination. Wright saw this not only as a problem, but as an opportunity. For decades, he had been developing the idea of the Usonian house, a modern American home that could be modest, efficient, warm, and connected to the land. Usonian architecture was not meant to be luxury architecture. It was meant to offer a democratic alternative, a way to make modern domestic life richer without depending on ornament, historical imitation, or excessive cost. The Feiman House belongs to this ambition. More specifically, it is connected to Wright's Usonian exhibition house, a model that had proposed how a compact modern home could be organized through modular thinking, built-in furniture, patterned construction, warm materials, and a strong connection between interior and exterior life. In Canton, Wright adapts that idea into a real domestic setting, where the system has to meet the realities of sight, privacy, use, and everyday living. This is where the house begins to reveal its first layer. It is systematic, but it is not generic. It uses repetition, but it does not become mechanical. It draws from a model, but it still produces a specific experience. And that tension is the heart of the project. From the outside, the Feiman House sits low and close to the earth. Its profile is horizontal, almost earth-hugging. The entrance is not immediately exposed. Wright delays arrival. He does not treat the front door as a simple point of access, but as part of a spatial sequence. The carport, low walls, brick piers, and overhanging roof all participate in that sequence. You do not simply enter, you approach, turn, adjust, and then discover the interior. This delayed entry is one of Wright's most important domestic strategies. It creates anticipation. It compresses the body before allowing space to open. It transforms a small suburban house into a sequence of experience. The drama is not theatrical, it is architectural. Inside, the house avoids the conventional separation of rooms as isolated boxes. Wright's domestic spaces often work through continuity. Living, dining, circulation, hearth, light, and view are treated as part of one unfolding environment. In the Feiman House, this continuity is shaped by a clear modular order, but also by carefully controlled variations. Space flows, but it is never shapeless. It is guided by walls, screens, ceiling patterns, built-ins, and changes in light. The hearth remains central, not only as a fireplace, but as a symbolic and spatial anchor. In Wright's architecture, the hearth often represents the emotional center of domestic life. It gathers the house around warmth, family, and gravity. Even in a modern plan, even within a modular system, the hearth reminds us that the house is not merely a machine for living. It is a place of ritual. Material plays a crucial role in giving the system warmth. The Feiman House is associated with brick and Philippine mahogany, materials that soften the logic of modular design. Brick gives the house weight, pattern, texture, and a sense of permanence. Wood brings intimacy and tactile richness. Together, they prevent the house from feeling abstract. They make the system inhabitable. One of the most distinctive features is the use of perforated brickwork and light screens. These elements are not simply decorative. They control privacy. They filter light. They create pattern. They make the wall active. Instead of being a flat boundary, the wall becomes a luminous surface, a mediator between outside and inside. During the day, light shifts through openings and across material surfaces. The house changes slowly, not through mechanical motion, but through time. This is where Wright's intelligence becomes visible. Repetition does not have to be dead. A repeated unit, a module, a screen, a pattern can become alive when light, movement, and human use activate it. The question is not whether a system is repetitive. The question is whether the system can produce variation, intimacy, and atmosphere. In the Feiman House, the answer is yes, but with tension. Wright's dream of accessible, systematic, democratic housing was never simple. His houses were often more complex to build than they appeared. They required precision, discipline, and a level of care that resisted the logic of mass production. The Feiman House stands inside that contradiction. It wants to belong to a broader architectural system, but it also depends on craft, judgment, and sensitivity. That contradiction does not weaken the project. It makes it more interesting. The house shows that architecture cannot become human through systems alone. It becomes systems alone. It becomes human through how those systems are orchestrated, through how walls frame movement, through how light enters, through how materials meet the hand, through how a low ceiling compresses the body before a living space opens toward light, through how an entry is delayed just long enough for arrival to feel meaningful. The Feiman House also reminds us that Wright's late career was not only about iconic spectacle. Yes, in the same decade, he was moving toward the Guggenheim, one of the most radical public buildings of the 20th century. But he was also still thinking about the ordinary American house, still asking how a family might live, still asking how construction, pattern, and space might come together to produce a richer daily life. That is the quiet power of this project. It does not try to overwhelm. It refines. It tests. It asks whether modern living can be modest without being empty, economical without being soulless, repeatable without becoming anonymous. In this sense, the Feiman House becomes part of a larger conversation about modern architecture after World War II. Across the world, architects were wrestling with the same problem: how to rebuild, how to house, how to modernize, how to create systems without erasing human experience. Some answered through glass and steel, some through concrete megastructures. Wright answered through the house, through the hearth, through the wall, through the module, through the daily rituals of domestic life. And once you see the Feiman House through that lens, it becomes much more than a small residence in Ohio. It becomes a late statement about the possibilities and limits of architectural systems. It shows that a house can be systematic and still intimate. It can come from a model and still feel specific. It can be part of a broader idea and still belong to one family, one site, one sequence of lived moments. What begins as a modest suburban house becomes an architectural test. Wright is asking whether the American home can be democratized without losing soul, whether order can produce freedom, whether repetition can create atmosphere, whether modernity can remain connected to warmth, privacy, and human scale. The Feiman House does not answer these questions perfectly. No building does, but it keeps them alive. And perhaps that is why it matters. It is not a final solution. It is a carefully built question. But the story does not end here, because in the next episode, we move from the intimacy of the American house to one of the most powerful memorial landscapes of the 20th century. From a private residence in Canton, Ohio, to Hiroshima, Japan. From the question of how a system can shape domestic life to the much heavier question of how architecture can carry collective memory. In our next video, we step into the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, completed in 1955 by Kenzo Tang. There, architecture is no longer only about shelter, system, or domestic experience. It becomes a civic act, a way of organizing grief, reconstruction, and the hope for peace after unimaginable destruction. If the Ellis A Feiman House asks whether architecture can make a system human, Hiroshima asks whether architecture can help a city remember. Leave your reflections in the comments. Can a modular or systematic house still feel personal? Can repetition create intimacy? Or does true domestic architecture always require variation, craft, and imperfection? Subscribe to Space Shape Scale. This channel is not just about buildings. It is about ideas about how architecture evolves, transforms, and changes the way we understand the world. Click on our next video to continue the journey, because architecture does not only build houses, it builds ways of living, it builds memory, and sometimes, even in the quietest domestic project, it leaves behind a question that refuses to disappear.